Unveil the dark truth. Haunting Aswang story of a baby found at midnight. The clock struck midnight, and the chilling wind howled through the narrow streets of Barangay Santo Niño. It was a time when shadows stretched and the streets lay bare, except for faint whispers skimming on the edge of night. But what happened next would turn that eerie calm into unthinkable horror. A baby, abandoned and swaddled in crimson cloth, was discovered beneath the ancient mango tree. The sight sent shivers down the spines of every villager, as tales of the Aswang, a terrifying creature that preyed on innocence, flooded their minds. The night turned darker, filled with sinister possibilities. The mangled whispers of the past echoed in the stillness. The name Aswang carried a weight that made mouths dry and hearts race. Some said it was a shapeshifter, luring its victims with false vulnerability. Others swore it could blend into the living, wearing human skin, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. As the villagers crowded the scene, eyes wide with fear, they peered into the shadows, half expecting the creature to bound around the corner, eager for its next meal. Fingers trembled as old Mrs. Dela Cruz reached for the baby. "What if it's a bait?" she asked, her voice trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. A murmur passed through the crowd, uncertainty painted on every face. The air hung heavy with dread. They all felt it, the danger lurking just beyond sight. As stories of past horrors replayed in the minds of the townsfolk, they found a sickening truth. The Aswang had never truly left them. Suddenly, the baby's whimper sliced the tension, drawing every gaze. Its eyes sparkled with innocence, yet something glimmered, a hint of dark mystery. Was it just a baby? Or was it a pawn in a much darker game? The air crackled with anxious energy, hearts pumping in sync with the humming fear that filled the night. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But just as curiosity bubbled, a loud rustle from the branches sent ripples of panic through the crowd. Faces turned pale, breaths quickened, and a low rumble rose from the gathered townsfolk. Out of the shadows stepped a figure, a woman, wild hair framing her face, eyes wide and frantic. "They're coming!" she screamed, her voice cracking, desperation spilling from her lips. "The Aswang, it's back!" Gasps filled the air as every head turned. Was it really true? Who would believe her twisted tale? As they turned to look at the baby, the gripping question echoed in their minds. Would this infant be the key to unraveling the cruel secrets of the Aswang? The fear doubled, hearts pounded loudly as the truth lurked just out of reach. What was hidden in that baby's eyes? As the whispers of danger filled the night, could the townsfolk face what lay ahead? A chilling mystery awaited. Would they truly discover the dark truth? Chaos erupted as the woman's words sank into the minds of the villagers. Panic washed over their previously curious expressions, morphing them into masks of dread. Everyone recoiled as if the very air had turned toxic. The wind seemed to howl louder, mirroring the mounting terror within the hearts of those present, weaving through the crowd like a spectral presence, urging them to flee. "Gather the children," shouted Mr. Chongson, an older resident who had faced the wrath of the Aswang in his youth. He pushed through the throng, voice hoarse with urgency. The villagers quickly dispersed, but not without casting fearful glances toward the baby, still nestled under the tree, its cries barely audible above the growing hysteria. "Don't leave it there," Mrs. Dela Cruz cried out. Her fingers shook as she pointed toward the crimson bundle, calling on motherly instinct despite her own trepidation. It could be a trap. The wild-haired woman turned, her eyes gleaming with fright. "We mustn't touch it. They use the innocent to lure us in." Her gasp hung in the air like an uninvited guest. "Who are you?" a voice bellowed from the back of the crowd. It was Norberto, the town's self-appointed protector, the one who spent nights armed with talismans and garlic. "You can't just come here and scream nonsense. If you faced the Aswang, speak. Tell us how to stop it." The woman staggered back, her face a canvas of anguish. "You don't understand. It's not just the Aswang. It's its eyes. They search for the lost, and once they find you, they one T-stop. Silence enveloped the gathering as fear morphed into chilling curiosity. What did she mean? The villagers looked nervously at one another. Meanwhile, the baby's whimpers formed a sinister backdrop to the unfolding chaos. Its cries, now more pronounced, held an unsettling allure. A young man brushed past the frightened masses, curiosity taunting him. "It's just a baby," he called. "Nothing to fear. It needs us." Before he could reach the swaddled infant, the air prickled unnervingly, and a chill slithered down his spine. From the shadows, dark shapes drifted, figures that hiccuped and stretched, melting into one another like shadows at dusk. The townsfolk froze, their breaths hitching in collective anxiety, and then a sudden sharp scream sliced through the heavy air. Mrs. Dela Cruz collapsed, clutching her heart, eyes wide as saucers, staring at something beyond the darkness. Gasps erupted as the crowd turned to face the direction of her gaze. Emerging from the depths of night was a figure, a tall, gaunt woman with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed with unnatural light. The woman pointed a trembling finger toward the baby. "It's her," she howled. "She has been waiting for you all. The Aswang has returned at last." Mass hysteria gripped the crowd. They split apart, some bolting toward their homes, others scrambling to find safety. Panic turned to frenzied shouting as accusations flew. "Don't blame the baby," someone shouted. "It's her fault. The witch is here." In the midst of the chaos, Norberto gritted his teeth, realizing that this was not just a fight against a monster, but a struggle for the very soul of Barangay Santo Niño. The stakes had risen. The Aswang wasn't just hunting the villagers. It was sowing discord among them too. As shadows closed in, enveloping the frightened townsfolk, the truth spiraled deeper into darkness. Could they unite against the true enemy threatening them all? Or would they devour each other before the Aswang could strike? A new mystery loomed. Who among them might actually be hiding a more sinister secret, and what would the Aswang truly demand? The air grew thick with panic, each breath a struggle as the villagers stumbled over each other, eyes darting around like moths drawn to a dim light. Who could they trust now? The darkness draped over Barangay Santo Niño felt alive, as if it were whispering secrets only the wind could carry. "Norberto!" Mr. Chongson shouted, grabbing the protector's arm. "What do we do? We can't let fear tear us apart." Just then the glimmering eyes of the gaunt woman pierced through the panicked crowd. "Fear is the Aswang's ally," she intoned, her voice echoing strangely through the chaos. "It feeds off our dread, our suspicion." The villagers hesitated. Were they enemies now? Or could they still stand united against their common foe? A group of mothers clutched their children tightly, protectively shielding them from the unknown. Mrs. Dela Cruz lay on the ground, her face still frozen in horror. Norberto inhaled deeply, the scent of sweat and soil mingling in an unsettling aroma. "We fight together," he exclaimed, firming his resolve. "We do not let this creature take our hearts." But the woman with the haunted eyes shook her head violently. "You do not know what I have seen. The Aswang walks among you. It can take any form it wishes, even those you love." Heavy murmurs swept through the crowd. It was that kind of fear, the kind that dug its claws deep into your gut and twisted. Whispers of betrayal began to swirl like the winds outside. What if the Aswang had already claimed one of their own? Could it be hiding in plain sight? "Stop!" shouted a young woman, pushing through the throng. "We can't just turn on one another. Listen." Her voice cracked, but it was laced with desperation. "We have to find the baby. If it's a trap, then we have to reveal it. Together." As if summoned, the infant's wails intensified, reverberating against the villagers' pounding hearts. Mr. Chongson pressed forward, stealing glances toward the darkened woods at the edge of the village. At that moment it all became clear. The baby wasn't just a lost child. It was a beacon, a signal to summon the Aswang. "Let me," Norberto said, gripping the young woman's shoulder. "I'll get closer. I'll see what it is." He stepped cautiously, heart hammering in his chest. The gaunt woman's eyes widened. "You can't. It will consume your soul." But Norberto's determination overpowered his fear. He arrived at the tree, the cries strangely beckoning him closer. As he reached the swaddled bundle, the night air shifted. The shadows lining the tree trunk shifted uncomfortably like silent vultures circling above. Then something caught his eye, glistening in the pale moonlight. A charm, a talisman, lay next to the baby, shimmering ominously. He reached for it, but just as his fingers brushed the fabric, the ground quaked beneath him. A low growl rolled through the air, snapping his attention back to the crowd. Dark figures emerged behind him, contorting with every heartbeat, stretching their shadows. The sight sent a cold rush through his veins, the reality of their situation crashing down. "Run!" he shouted, the word bursting forth like a fire alarm in the night. But where could they flee? The path was engulfed in chaos. Every shadow became suspect, every heartbeat a reminder of their peril. "Trust no one," the gaunt woman cried, her warnings echoing in the frenzy, as heads snapped to every lurking silhouette in the night. Just then, a horrific shriek pierced the air. Someone was captured. One of their own. The villagers froze, dread seeping deeper into their bones. Norberto spun around, eyes wide, realizing so much was at stake. They weren't just fighting for the baby, nor were they battling only the Aswang. Doubts had already begun tearing them apart. With fear clenching his chest, he faced the crowd. "We need to find the truth before it's too late." And the question loomed in every shaking heart. Were they already too far gone? Would anyone make it to sunrise? Norberto's heart pounded with every frantic pulse. The villagers, once a tight-knit community, were now splintered by fear. Shadows writhed around him, and he could feel every gaze heavy with suspicion. The frantic cries of the baby echoed like a death knell in his mind, urging him to act. Yet the darkness blurred the lines of reality. "Stay together," he shouted, but his voice drowned in the rising chaos. Mothers clutched their children like shields, eyes wild with confusion. Someone screamed again, a sound twisted with terror. Then the ground beneath Norberto groaned. He whipped around, senses heightened, every raspy breath he took laden with foreboding. The Aswang was close, prowling beneath the shroud of the night. Shadows danced like eerie phantoms around them, silhouettes of doubt and despair. "Who's missing?" shouted Mr. Chongson, his face pale and drawn. "We need to know." But as Norberto scanned the faces in the crowd, he realized that even familiar ones had become alien. What if one of them had succumbed to the Aswang's deception? It wasn't just about the baby. It was about survival, each member now a potential threat. "Over there." Mrs. de la Cruz shattered the tension, pointing wildly to the path leading deeper into the forest. "That's where I saw it." Norberto's breath hitched. He recalled the tales of the Aswang, the transformational beasts that could mimic loved ones. They could be hiding right under their noses, mimicking the faces of those who had never left the village. Suddenly, a figure bolted from the shadows. A young man, raving mad, stumbled into the circle of flickering torchlight, his shirt torn, wild eyes rolling in panic. "It got him," he howled. "He's gone." The villagers recoiled, gasps rippling through the crowd. Suspicion ignited like wildfire. Fingers quickly pointed, accusing whispers filled the air. Norberto felt his stomach twist. Would they sacrifice one another to protect their own skins? "Watch him," someone shouted. "He could be the Aswang." "No, don't." The voice of the young woman from before stood firm against the tide of hysteria. "We can't attack one of our own. We need to find a way to unite." But the fear had corrupted their hearts, and soon chaos erupted once again. People were pulling away, forming factions, their screams mingling in the night. Distress turned faces once full of warmth into blurs of enmity. "Stop!" Norberto bellowed, pushing through the crowd, desperate to reclaim control. The wailing of the baby expanded in pitch, as if it were pleading for sanity, grounding them from the impending madness. But visibility was fading, and sense with it. Suddenly, the gaunt woman stepped forward once more, her eyes wide, shimmering with dread. "You must listen to me. The talisman will protect you." She gestured wildly to Norberto's hand where the talisman lay forgotten amidst the turmoil. Before he could respond, another ear-splitting shriek reverberated through the air. This time, it was cut short. The realization crashed over Norberto, visceral and horrifying. Their ranks were being thinned. Someone was taken, and they had no idea who was next. Racing against the swell of panic, Norberto knew he had to make a choice. He turned to the group. "We can either meet the Aswang together or let it tear us apart." But the echoes of doubt pinned them down. Who was brave enough to push forward? Who had the courage to uncover the truth lurking in the shadows? The air crackled with uncertainty, and just as hope flickered like a dying flame, another chilling howl filled the night, shaking the very core of the village. "Whatever you do," Norberto whispered, a lump forming in his throat, "we need to choose before there's no one left to choose." And with that, a decision hung in the air like heavy smoke: to flee into the dark and face the unknown, or to confront the enemy already nestled among them. Time was slipping, and every heartbeat could mark the difference between discovery and doom. Would they find the courage to stand together? Or would the darkness claim them all? Norberto's eyes darted among the crowd, each shadowy face blurring with anxiety. The flickering torchlight danced across their features, revealing fear etched in every furrowed brow. Just a handful of moments ago they were neighbors, friends, even family. Now they felt like strangers, each an island in a sea of mistrust. "Gather around," he called, forcing strength into his voice. They needed a leader, a plan. "We must stick together, split, and the Aswang will pick us off one by one." But the villagers were frozen, caught in the quicksand of terror. Some clutched their children tighter, while others whispered among themselves, exchanging glances laced with suspicion. The pounding of Norberto's heart echoed in his ears, overtaken by the rising tension. Then, a voice broke through the murmur. It was Mrs. de la Cruz again, her voice ringing clear albeit shaky. "What if one of us is already taken? How will we know who to trust?" Norberto clenched his jaw. Her words unsettled him. They carved a rift deeper than he anticipated. "If we let fear dictate our actions, we'll lose ourselves," he insisted, arms raised to halt the brewing discord. "We must examine the talisman. It may reveal the truth." At the mention of the talisman, the crowd shifted uneasily, eyes darting towards the glint of metal in his palm. For a moment silence hung as people processed. Would they believe? Would they cling to the last hope that flickered within the talisman's ancient engravings? "Is that even real?" A man in the back scoffed. "What good is a trinket against something so vile? We need swords and shields, not superstition." Norberto knew that his words hung by a thread. Doubt churned like a storm inside him. What if the talisman couldn't protect them? What if it made them more vulnerable? He thought of the baby's cries, resonating like a battered drum in his mind. They needed time to fight suspicion and regain trust. His breath caught when he glanced toward the edge of the crowd. The gaunt woman, whose warnings woven with desperation lingered in the air, moved slowly, her gaze fixated on something in the distance. With a sudden burst of energy, she stumbled forward, pointing into the surrounding darkness. "It's coming!" she shrieked. "I can feel it. We must hide." A collective gasp rippled through the group. A shiver crawled down Norberto's spine. The overwhelming dread settled in his gut, twisting it into knots. Was it true? Had the Aswang returned, hunting amongst them? "Kill the lights!" yelled Mr. Chongson, and all at once the torches flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic surged like a tidal wave, bodies jostling as confusion took hold. A wind howled through the trees, the rustling leaves mimicking the cries of the villagers. "Don't move." Norberto's voice cut through the cacophony. The stillness that followed was suffocating. Every heartbeat echoed painfully, every breath a reminder of their proximity to the lurking horror. He could sense the weight of unseen eyes, probing the edges of their makeshift sanctuary. Time felt at a standstill. Moments stretched taut like a fragile thread, ready to snap at any moment. And then there it was. A faint rustle in the underbrush, a shadow deeper than night flitted just out of sight, testing their resolve. Norberto's pulse quickened. "We need to see." He began to feel around for something, anything to ignite the darkness. A spark, a flame, a flicker of hope. But what if they uncovered more than they bargained for? Suddenly, a heart-stopping scream shattered the silence. It was a sound so primal, so filled with anguish that it reached deep within the soul. Someone had been snatched from their midst. Could it have been the Aswang? Was this just the beginning? Who was it? He managed to whisper, faith quaking beneath the strain of despair. Was it too late? Would the darkness swallow them whole? Above the cascading panic and cries, the wind carried a chilling voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the forest. "Find the one who believes." Norberto trembled as that message landed heavily in the air. Who was this hidden seer? And what awaited them in the shadows beyond? Norberto's heart raced, an avalanche of dread crashing down on him as he tried to piece together the fragments of the horror unfolding in the dark. Shadows shifted, fueled by fear and the haunting whispers of uncertainty. Who screamed? He pressed, his voice trembling as he sought assurance amidst the chaos. It took several agonizing moments, but finally, a figure stepped forward, face pale, eyes wide with shock. It was Elena, her hands trembling as they cradled something small, swathed in a cloak. I don't know, she stammered, but the shimmer of something reflective caught the dim light. I looked and then it was gone. She lifted the fabric slightly, revealing a baby, eyes blinking in the dark, completely unharmed yet oddly still. Where did you find it? Norberto asked, his breath catching at the sight. The child seemed untouched by the chaos, as if the very horror that engulfed them had overlooked this innocent thing. Elena shook her head rapidly, trying to piece together the night's events. I saw something move, a shadow, and then I just felt driven to check by the old banyan tree. A murmur rippled through the crowd, catching fire among the fears that were already ablaze. Someone had laid claim to the child, a token amid the nightmare. Could it be, Norberto pondered, that this baby represented hope against the Aswang lurking just outside their thoughts? He stepped closer, examining the infant's smooth skin and soft curls, as the villagers rose from their shock. They needed to know how to gauge the truth. Is this child ours? Is this part of the darkness or a sign of our savior? He called, desperation leaking into his tone. An uneasy quiet settled, broken only by the fading echoes of whispers. But it was Mrs. de la Cruz who pushed through the wall of bodies. This is no time for riddles, Norberto, she snapped, overflowing with fierce urgency. The Aswang could be anywhere. We must. A cacophony startled them into silence. A bone-chilling cry cascaded through the trees, raw and terrible. The darkness quaked around them, as if the forest itself was shuddering in fear. Norberto felt it in his bones. The Aswang was close, too close. Hide the baby, he shouted, the weight of their desperation pooling in his chest. We have to protect it, whatever happens. He noticed Elena swaddle the infant closer, arms trembling, eyes darting in wild confusion. Someone from the rear shouted, what if it's a trap? What if the Aswang wants us to gather? To lure us in? Silence. Norberto growled, the edge of panic lacing his voice. We cannot let fear fracture us now. We're connected. We are stronger together. His words hung in the air, trying to stitch the fraying nerves back into a single thread of unity. But then another shadow flickered beyond the circle of would-be protection. It glided low along the ground before disappearing into the trees, a fleeting glimpse becoming an unbearable weight in their hearts. But we can't stick around. A voice shouted over the stillness, eyes wide and wild. What do we do if it attacks? Norberto grasped at the talisman, holding it up like a beacon. We need to channel our fear. Keep the light of truth alive. We reveal the darkness, step toward it. The crowd breathed in unison, torn between faith and despair, as the terrified eyes of the baby met Norberto's gaze. An uncomfortable emotion stirred, a belief manifesting within him. Then the chilling wind carried that voice again, layered with shadows and sorrow, whispering, find the one who believes there lays your salvation. Could it be true? Was there more to the talisman? Was the baby the key? Who believes? He roared into the dark. Who stands with me against the Aswang? A heartbeat later, another scream erupted from the woods, echoing dread and despair. They would have to find out, before it was too late. Would the darkness consume them? Or was the time for revelation finally at hand? Norberto felt the air thicken, almost suffocating as he absorbed the chilling echoes of despair that floated through the trees. The villagers shifted restlessly, eyes darting between the darkness and the baby, an innocent symbol cradled against their ever-looming doom. What do you mean, find the one who believes? He murmured to himself, a nervous hand clenching the talisman. The words weighed on him like an anchor, urging him to decipher their meaning. Elena's grip tightened on the child. Maybe it's you, Norberto. You spoke of unity and strength. I saw how the talisman responded to you. Her voice, though quiet, held a tremor of hope. But what if it's a deception? Mrs. de la Cruz interjected, her dark eyes narrowing, revealing distrust. What if believing only leads us further into the Aswang's trap? You speak of fear as if it's our only compass, Norberto replied, glancing toward the restless crowd. But surely you all feel it too, the need to fight. The glimmer of hope. Let us not abandon that. His words sparked something in the villagers. A flicker of resolve revived the dim faces. They crouched closer, shoulders brushing against each other, encircling Elena and the baby. But the palpable sense of danger was pressing in. A gnawing reminder that they were not alone. The scream echoed again, more haunting this time, reverberating off the trees. Silence held them captive for an unbearable moment before it swelled. Panic erupted. "Run!" Someone shouted, and it was as if thunder had struck. The crowd surged backward as limbs and bodies collided, a chaotic wave of fear crashing away from the very spot where hope stood cradled against the storm. Norberto's heart raced. "No! Stay together!" he cried, yet the tide was too strong. The villagers rushed in all directions, screaming for safety, abandoning the one thing grounded in innocence, the baby. "Come on, Elena!" He rushed forward, unable to leave them behind. She hesitated, glancing at the shadows that flickered in the corners of her vision. Her lips pressed tightly together as fear danced across her face. But with a nod, she followed him, tucking the baby close to her heart. Together, they turned toward the gaping darkness, where the scream had come from. "Do you feel that?" Elena breathed, her eyes searching the shadows. "It's like it's hungry." He didn't want to admit it, but his insides churned with dread. The air was charged, electric with malevolence. The Aswang was close, lurking just beyond what they could see, teasing them with fear. "Do you believe?" Norberto dared to ask, needing to hold on to this fragile thread of faith. I believe in us," she stammered, her voice quaking yet firm. And at that moment the talisman pulsed in his hand, radiating warmth that spread like ripples through cold water. Was it possible? Was this the sign they had longed for? Out of the darkness, shadows moved. Silhouettes twisted into shapes that made Norberto's skin crawl. The abominable face of the Aswang burst into view, bloody and ravenous, teeth sharp as daggers, black eyes sparkling with malice. Terror gripped him, rooting him in place. A wave of home sweet home surged from the crowd. They were here, fragmented but united, faces filled with determination as they stood their ground. "Face it!" Norberto shouted, forcing his fear to retreat. "Let us face it together." But as the Aswang lunged, there was a moment, an almost unbearable clash of strength. Would their unity be enough? Could belief manifest into their salvation? Then the baby let out a cry that sliced through the tension like a blade. A piercing note that rang true. And in that instant the Aswang stopped. All eyes turned toward the small figure in Elena's arms, wide-eyed and vibrant. What power did that innocent cry hold? Norberto felt the air shift, as the darkness tensed. What did it mean? The shadows solidified, and he was overwhelmed with questions. Could the baby be the key to their survival? There was no time to think as the shadows shifted once more. Would they wrestle the fate from the jaws of darkness? Or was the Aswang's grip too strong to break? The night was just beginning, and now they had to unravel the truth before it swallowed them whole. Norberto's heart thundered in his chest as the Aswang froze, its gruesome features contorting in confusion. The air crackled with a tension so thick it felt like a noose tightening around them. His grip on the talisman tightened, as if willing it to shine brighter against the encroaching shadows. "What now?" he whispered to Elena, barely able to tear his gaze from the looming creature. Its nostrils flared, drawn inexplicably toward the baby's innocent cries, as if they were a siren song meant to beckon it closer. "Maybe it can sense something in the child?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper, her eyes wide. "It all depends on that sound." The baby, oblivious to the horror unfolding around it, continued to wail, each cry resonating through the dark woods like a beacon. The Aswang's brutish form trembled, its predatory instincts warring against a growing uncertainty. Then with a sudden burst of energy, the creature lunged. It was a flash, a furious blur of claws and fangs aimed directly at them. "No!" Norberto screamed, and as if the world had slowed, he lunged forward, his heart racing, desperately shielding Elena and the baby with his body. The talisman in his hand flared, casting a brilliant light that momentarily pushed back the darkness. A howl erupted from the Aswang as it staggered back, recoiling from the light. A surge of hope ignited in the villagers, their scattered forms beginning to regroup. They felt it to the heart of their faith binding them. A collective instinct igniting their resolve. Together. Norberto bellowed once more. The urgency surging through him like fire. We can drive it back. The villagers, emboldened by the light, moved forward, forming a wall of solidarity behind him and Elena. They reached for their own weapons reflected in the wavering light, the glint of old swords, farming tools, makeshift stakes. The weight of shared determination flooded him. Together they were stronger. Elena held the baby out, its cries echoing amid the thickening tension. You have to believe, Norberto. This child, it's special. But the talisman's glow flickered, sputtering uncertainly, and fear gripped him once more. What if we're wrong? What if our belief leads us into darkness instead? A rhythmic thumping began to echo through the forest, the villagers chanting together, a battle hymn of hope rising from the depths of their being. Believe in the light. Believe in the strength of our hearts. Their voices entwined, filling the air with raw power. The will to fight surged like electricity, amplifying the brightness of the talisman, a luminous shield against the encroaching shadows. The Aswang snarled, its fury palpable. Fools! It screeched, a voice that clawed at their sanity. This child is the key to your doom. Not if we stand together. Norberto roared, clasping Elena's hand, anchoring them both beneath the weight of impending danger. The talisman blazed, a beacon of warmth that shone brighter than the darkness casting its grip upon them. It pulsed with their shared belief, reaching into the depths of Norberto's heart, igniting the spark of hope. And as the Aswang prepared to launch its next attack, Norberto understood. The baby wasn't just a symbol of innocence. It represented their resistance, their unyielding fight against despair. Now! He roared, propelling forward with every muscle in his body tensed, willing the talisman to unleash its power. In that split second, everything hinged on belief, their belief in each other, in the light, in the strength that comes from unity amidst chaos. But right then, just as they charged forward, a shadow moved beyond the Aswang. What lurked there? Was it another enemy? Or perhaps a revelation that would change everything? The night, still young, promised even more horrors yet to unfold. The air thickened, as if the forest itself held its breath. Norberto could feel the pulse of his own heartbeat echoing like a drum, loud in his ears, drowning out the relentless wailing of the baby. He glanced over his shoulder at the villagers, their faces taut with fear and determination, clenching their makeshift weapons, waiting for a signal. The Aswang's eyes zeroed in on him. It hissed, baring sharp teeth gleaming under the wavering light of the talisman. You think you can protect the child? It spat, rage bubbling beneath its voice. You know nothing of the dark power she carries. Norberto's heart skipped. What did it mean? Fear trickled into his mind, a sinister whisper urging him to doubt. He could feel Elena's grip tighten on his arm. Her face, pale yet resolute, hinted at her own fear but remained unwavering in the face of the darkness. Charge! Norberto shouted, desperation fueling his courage. He propelled himself into the fray, talisman raised high, radiating warmth and light. The villagers surged behind him. But just as they closed the distance, the air shifted. From the shadow, something else emerged, a figure enveloped in darkness, moving with an unnatural fluidity, gliding over the ground like smoke. It was neither fully shaped nor easily recognizable, a thing that sparked dread deep in Norberto's gut. Look! Elena cried, pointing toward the emerging shadow as it took form. A woman draped in tattered robes, her face obscured by a veil. Who is she? Is she with the Aswang? Step back! Norberto shouted, instinctively shielding Elena and the baby. The villagers took a collective step back, confusion etching their faces. The fear brewed like a storm cloud. Do not be afraid, the woman intoned, her voice a haunting melody that swept through the air. I come not to harm but to reveal what has been hidden. She drew closer, her presence somehow both comforting and unsettling. We don't need your riddles. Norberto yelled, edging forward defensively. We need to fight. But do you truly understand the battle you fight? She gestured toward the Aswang, whose twisted lips curled into a ghastly grin. This child is bound to powers far beyond your comprehension. Forces of ancient darkness that you awaken with every act of violence. What do you know about the child? Norberto demanded, stepping forward. Who are you? I am a seer, one who has felt the pull of the darkness as well as the light. That child holds a truth, the key to your salvation or your doom. Her eyes shimmered with a mix of sorrow and wisdom. You must choose wisely how you proceed. The Aswang roared, interrupting the moment. Enough. Your fate is sealed. It lunged blindly, claws stretching toward Norberto. The villagers braced themselves, fear glimmering like a thin film over their courage. Believe! Elena screamed, clutching the baby close to her heart. In that heartbeat of chaos, something deep stirred inside Norberto. Anger, fear, and an overwhelming need to protect collided within him. He raised the talisman high, willing it to glow brighter, a symbol of defiance against the darkness threatening to consume them. The light flickered, echoes of anger mixing with echoes of hope, creating an electric atmosphere. Stop! Norberto shouted, not just at the Aswang, but at the shadows that haunted their lives. Yet, just as the talisman surged again, the veiled woman stepped forward. You must decide. Is the light worth the price you must pay? Her voice carried an urgency that made Norberto pause. What hidden dangers waited behind their choice? And if this child was truly a key, a door into the darkness, they would be forced to confront it in ways they never imagined. The night hung between the flickering light and the consuming shadows, poised on the edge of revelation and terror. What was the truth the child held? And could they harness it? Or would the darkness consume them all? A new question snaked through Norberto's mind. Was there a way to protect the baby without sacrificing the village? As silence washed over them, a warped smile crept over the Aswang's face. Decisions. Decisions. The moonlight cast strange shadows across the forest floor. The battle had only just begun, but what awaited them next could change everything they believed. Norberto's heart raced, thrumming like a drum in the cavernous silence that had fallen over Barangay Santo Niño. Eyes flitted between the grasping shadows and the small, innocent figure in Elena's arms. The baby's cries filled the air, fragile yet powerful, like a fragile thread tethering them to hope amid the imminent darkness. Make the choice. The Aswang's voice cut through the stillness, a hissing challenge meant to tear them apart. The figure loomed, its twisted existence barely contained within the confines of reality, while the hooded seer lingered like a phantom of warning and wisdom. The air pulsed with a predatory energy, the unspoken weight of truth hovering just out of reach. Norberto! Elena's voice trembled, her grip tightening on the baby, a mix of fear and defiance shining in her wide eyes. We can't just stand here. He nodded, gazing at the villagers who had rallied alongside them. Distrust still flickered among them like shadows, but there was something, an ember of unity glowing softly in their shared determination. We fight for our home. We fight for what is right. He shouted, letting urgency drive his voice, anchoring them against the specter of despair. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Just as he called upon that determination, the Aswang shrieked, a sound that clawed at the only remnants of courage they held. Your cries will echo in darkness. You cannot save what is already doomed. With that, it lunged forward, primal and fierce, its elongated shadows stretching towards Norberto and Elena. The villagers shuddered, but Norberto felt a flicker of something solid, a strength born from unity. Now! He shouted, raising the talisman still pulsing with light. The remnants of their belief surged forth, igniting not just the talisman but the hearts of those gathered. Elena lifted the baby high. This child is our hope. The air crackled as if the cosmos itself acknowledged her call. The villagers, fueled by an unwavering spirit, became a wall of resilience behind Norberto and Elena. And with that, the talisman blazed, its light expanding like the dawn, threatening a gripping night, pushing back the Aswang's shadow. The creature recoiled for a moment, confusion splintering its fierce facade. But that brief hesitation was all Norberto needed. They rushed forward, weapons brandished, believing fiercely in the light they created together. Believe! The crowd roared, a battle cry pouring forth that resonated with every breath they shared. The chaos of energies met. The Aswang swung its claw, but the talisman illuminated brighter, illuminating the shadows that had once gripped their hearts. With each collision of light and darkness, Norberto could feel the truth emerging. The baby was their anchor, drawing power from their united faith. The Aswang staggered, snarling, "You cannot defeat me. I am what dwells in fear." But the villagers stood their ground, as whispers of their past turned into a cacophony of strength. "Fear is your ally, not ours," Norberto shouted, feeling the talisman grow hotter in his hand with every word. With belief comes strength. And we believe in the light. As if answering the collective call, the talisman radiated a piercing brightness, slicing through the gathering darkness. The shadows dissolved, breaking apart like dust scattering in the wind, exposing the horror fulfilling the Aswang's grasp. And then, from the heart of that light surged something unforeseen. Love. The moment was electric, wrapping around Norberto and Elena, hugging them close as the baby's cries transformed, becoming stronger, infused with the hope of the entire village. The Aswang staggered again, the change reflecting despair in its ghastly eyes. "What have you done?" It howled, voice unraveling in disbelief. But the villagers pressed forward, empowered by the belief forged in unity, refusing to be ensnared by doubt any longer. "We've chosen love," Elena cried, eyes blazing, illuminating the essence of their truth. With one final push, a force of sheer will, the talisman erupted into a blinding flame, washing over the Aswang and driving it back into the darkness from whence it came. The creature writhed and screamed, the shadows dissolving until it crumbled into the dust of the night. Silence wrapped the village. Norberto sank to his knees, breathless and trembling. The baby cooed softly, now its cries a lullaby merging with the sigh of relieved villagers. They gathered around, eyes glistening with fresh warmth, surrounding him and Elena like a shield of solidarity. Mr. Chongson's weathered face broke into a smile, despite the weariness, and he muttered, "We must remember. We are always stronger together." Emotion swelled within Norberto, the weight of fear lifting like a veil burned away by the morning sun. "Tonight we've rekindled hope," he said, voice steady but filled with emotion. "Let us share this light. We must hold on to it, for one another and for those who may come." As dawn broke, the golden rays swept over them, blanketing Barangay Santo Niño with warmth. And so, amid the residual twilight of terror, beloved shadows faded into sunlight. The villagers joined together, renewing their faith, their hearts forever untouched by the darkness they had defeated. But they understood deep down a light always beckoned, and while the Aswang was gone for now, they would continue to cherish one another and their newfound bond, protecting their village with vigilance, with the knowledge that together they could confront any darkness. Trust fluttered once more in their hearts. In that moment, hope blossomed anew. And as they watched the dawn unfold, Norberto knew it was just the beginning. The village had faced their darkest fears, not just of the Aswang, but of losing themselves to doubt. They had chosen love and unity, and that choice would guide them through the shadows no matter what lay ahead. Remember, you need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories coming up. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep us going strong. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this heart-pounding ending. Your thoughts matter. And don't wait even one more second, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to feel this resolution. Your support means the world. Join this incredible community today.